asking for it. A novel approach. Episode 24. Chapter 97. Oh, please. I don't know how you got out of it, but you're definitely a free man. What have you done with my loyal minion, anyway? It's like you've had some kind of growth spurt since we left Florida. Oh, I guess I know what you're talking about, but really, I have no idea. Uh-huh. They're in the cheap flat on Tamarind Avenue, drinking wine like teenagers. They face each other, sitting cross-legged on the busted living room sofa bed. Michaela lets the gap in their conversation elongate. She reclines and affects an expectant air. Okay, I'll give it a shot. You know the old song, I Put a Spell on You? Michaela nods hesitantly. Well, it's not like that. Not that your charms haven't had everything to do with my life since we met. They have. Ha! You know, the whole witchy woman, fortune teller, voodoo queen of New Orleans shtick. Well, all of a sudden, it isn't all that outrageous to me. In fact, I think I might have met her. Oh, really? Yeah, except she was a thin white woman in her 60s, big librarian glasses and sensible shoes and a pinstripe suit. A psychotherapist who swore heavy oaths against any talk therapy, but did little of anything else with me as far as I could tell. Little of anything else? Huh. Michaela works a big toe into Lance's ribs while swigging at her wine. She whistles tunelessly and inspects the yellowing stucco on the ceiling above them. Well, she did give me a shove. A literal and in no way sexy shove. No commentary at all, just something symbolic, I guess. The last I saw of her, too. You could say she showed me the door. I had an appointment to see her 3 days later, got there and the door was locked. Her cell number? Nada. For 3 days. Like she didn't even exist. That's when I got the bike. You always did respond well to rejection. Not that I see the connection. Sorry. Yeah, that was the witchy part. When I found that door locked, I also found a business card on the ground, right there on the sidewalk, in front of her door. Don't know why, but I picked it up. It was kind of trashed looking, but on the back was info for a vintage bike event up on the coast near Lauderdale. It was weird. The event was being held by a club my father used to belong to. When he was younger, back in England, he was a bit of a biker. And that was it, really. I drove straight up there. I was offloading clients to my assistant before I even got there, freeing up my time before I even knew what for. Not exactly black magic, I know, but the synchronicity moved me. By day's end, I'd dropped 20 grand on a bike. I haven't even ridden in 30 years. Not magic, I guess, but kind of romantic. Romantic? Sure, in a flaky midlife crisis kind of way. Yeah, I've given that some thought too. And you know what? I really don't give a fuck. They laugh, reclaim their glasses from the floor, and toast Lance's not giving a fuck. Somewhat giddy, they keep laughing and spilling drinks until they can set them back down. Recovered from the moment's delirium, they catch their breath, sunk back together in the sagging couch. And then they're kissing, slowly and deeply. As the kiss continues, they begin tussling for position. Michaela keeps her lips locked on Lance's while removing his shirt. A single button skitters across the floor and disappears underneath the baseboards, where it'll remain until they remodel the ramshackle apartments years into the future. Bare-chested, Lance finally breaks off the kiss and busies himself swabbing Michaela's ears, throat, and collarbones with his tongue. He is astride her hips. She growls and giggles. She forces him upright again, her left hand on his throat, then curls the fingers of her right inside the waistband of his chinos. Lance's eyes open wide. Her face is an arm's length below his, but he sees nothing. In his head there's a blinding sunburst. A shiver is running throughout him. On and on it goes. Just shy of losing consciousness, he sucks in a desperate breath and catches the scent of her shampoo. His eyes refocus, and he grins down into Michaela's laughing OMG expression. She levers him to one side, and they tumble onto the floor. Somehow she maintains her two-hand purchase as they land, immediately heaving him back into a seated position up against the couch. Wait there. She wriggles out of her sweatpants and panties, then crawls a little ways away from him on all fours, robust haunches swaying in tight, sensuous arcs. She stops and looks around at him, as if to fix a target. Her look says, "Do not move an inch." Then she backs up fast until she is on him, her ass rammed up firmly against him. There's the possibility of endless arousal. She just keeps coming, gluing herself more firmly onto his lap, plowing up and over his abs, climbing his rib cage with her pussy. With her sex scenting his chest hair, Lance pays an oral homage to the twin globes that have so captivated his imagination. He is crazy to plunge into her, but she has a fist wrapped firmly around him, holding him hostage, motionless, still inside his pants. Several minutes of intimate negotiation later, his maturity firmly established in Michaela's ripe confines, Lance is thanking the goddess again and again. She rocks him, he plunges, and they roll across the floor. The sobbing recipient of a blissful gift, Lance is still muttering tributes as he catches his breath many minutes later. Michaela laughs lustily at this wanton piety. Reclined, luxuriating, supremely content, she awaits his revival. Chapter 98. When he arrives at the upscale rental agency, the Edge is thinking of his humble Chevy Nova. He left it with Leonora Chivlets. She can use it if her old Volvo gives her any trouble. A sleekly groomed agent is verifying availability for the Porsche Panamera. "I'll just check quick," she chirps. "But really, we've got 'em all." Lance has phoned ahead and given the Edge a number, a priority booking thing. "You need a car," he'd said. "It's L.A. after all." A minute later, the familiar low-slung profile is pulled up out front, driver's side door open wide. The interior is bigger, more comfy than he's imagined it somehow. The Edge is a little disappointed. He almost climbs back out to ask for a Carrera 911 or some other true sports car. But he wants to feel what Lance feels, experience his car of choice. So, a minute later, he's coaxing it through Hollywood traffic and out onto the freeway. Gradually breaking free of LA's gravity, he drives steadily, almost overcautiously. Eventually, he's out on the I-10 headed east. Well and truly clear of the sprawl, he's presented with a long sweep in the road, left and right again, up a slight grade. There are only 3 cars for better than a mile up the road ahead. Clear sailing, out to where the slope crests on the horizon. He downshifts into 3rd gear and puts his foot down hard. The big engine groans, then roars tunefully, roars, then really sings as he slaps it back up through 4th into 5th. He's doing 140 when he hits the crest and he reels it back in. You'd have to be outrunning the highway patrol to make use of a 6th gear in this thing. He flicks the transmission back into full automatic and cruises out through the desert landscape at a sedate 90 miles per hour. He's grown accustomed to the engine's thrum. The car speeds on smoothly through space, the cabin eerily silent. He's been in the car almost 2 hours when he sees the first signs for Joshua Tree National Park, and he pulls off the interstate for 29 Palms. From there, he continues along and rides into the town of Joshua Tree. 10 minutes after that, he's entering the park itself. He has a quart bottle of water with him, half of which he's finished on the drive out. For another half hour, he coaxes the Panamera out through the desert. He comes to a trailhead signposted Hidden Valley. That sounds good. Turning up the rocky little RV road, he drives ever more cautiously until the Porsche's low-slung carriage work eventually grounds out. Shutting the engine off, the Edge gets out and stretches. He closes his door and opens the trunk, tosses in the keys and his cell before closing it up again. Walking away from the car, he drains the last of his bottle of water. Not far off, he encounters a canyon drop. The heat is building, the sun idling at its noontide perch directly above. Endless yellow stone boulders, the desert floor and cliff faces, even the distant boulder-strewn valley below, everything is bleached white under the harsh perpendicular light. The Edge pokes his empty plastic bottle in between rocks on the canyon precipice, then climbs over. Chapter 99. With their post-coital glow still only just fading, Lance and Michaela scoop up clothing and rapidly decamp the little place on Tamarind. Half an hour later, they're mattress testing in his sumptuous room at the Sofitel, Beverly Hills. After another happy hour, still in the big bed with a view, Michaela is wrists deep in a messy platter of nachos. Lance has dodged out, insisting there is something he needs to get for her. She wonders what the Edge is doing for dinner, and she wonders how he'll take this turn of events. He'd better take it well. She's given him plenty of openings, and he's steadfastly failed to make a move. She is not going to feel guilty about this. So what if she's dragged him out here? It wasn't like he'd been passionately pursuing career goals in Fort Pierce. What had he been doing there anyway? How had they even met? She can only vaguely recall that boozy beach bar evening. It started with brandy. Dick there too. Eventually there was some drunken play-fighting in the sand with this buff, haughty stranger guy. Everything fabulously juvenile, innocent even. She's still pondering her journey from that night to this when Lance gets back. The journey has brought her through so much weirdness. Psychosexual, quasi-porn, Teddy's girl stalking, training with a world champion fighter, her crash course in the erotics of humiliation. Michaela looks at the carnage of corn chips and cheese, sour cream and salsa in her lap, wishing it could vanish. Lance hasn't come straight to bed. He is stalled halfway in from the door, and he's looking at her like he's calculating something in his head. She beams him her adorable child smile. "So, where's my surprise?" He doesn't immediately reply. "Scratch that. I don't really need any more surprises today. Give me some more of the tried and true. A double helping, if you please. Maybe a side order of your heart and soul for good measure?" But it's too late. Something is up, and it doesn't look 100% good. Lance crosses the room as far as the bed, then thinks better of it. With an apologetic expression, he passes on to stand in the mini atrium that the room's expansive windows comprise. All the while, he's scratching his head in a disturbing, cliched manner. He starts speaking to the windows, maybe to L.A. beyond, before turning back to face her. "I thought you guys needed a car. It's L.A. after all. You can't get anywhere without a car." "Well, that was pretty thoughtful of you, and typically generous. I phoned ahead, and I sent the Edge over to get something. We talked about a convertible, maybe a Mustang, something fun like that. The place I use has everything. Long term, short term. And he rented a Panamera 12 hours ago. One day only. Michaela is nodding, preparing to answer a not-so-hard question, all the while fishing in her purse for her cell. He's not answering to me. I just went around to your place and the cafe. She's waving at him to be quiet while she calls. Finally, she tosses her cell down on the covers and climbs out of the bed. He doesn't even have his voicemail. Yeah, the blinds were up. Your place looked normal. You guys aren't having a tiff or anything, are you? They pause, earnestly attempting comprehension. Edgy doesn't do tiffs. I should know. I've tried. Shit, where is he? Lance suffers a painful stab of affection and disappointment at wrecking her good mood. He steps over to intercept as Michaela starts making for her shoes. He takes her hands. She gives him a look. It's a vaguely worried, vaguely frustrated look. I was just there, Michaela. I want us to be all cool too, don't worry. But he could be anywhere. Let's give him some space, maybe? Benefit of the doubt? Lance wraps an arm around her shoulders and steers them back over to the windows. He draws a deep but inconspicuous breath as they look down onto the prosperous circus at the intersection of La Cienega and Beverly Boulevard. He isn't worried about the car. One of his insurance policies can take care of whatever needs taken care of. He'd pay dearly, though, for a little insurance on Michaela's happiness. The Edge is a burly fucker, and he'll take care of himself. Lance struggles with an urge to smother Michaela in kisses. It's making it difficult to worry properly. Chapter 100. Ex-world champ AWOL with producers Porsche. It's got a nice ring to it, muses Manfred. Abierte called to cancel their coffee with this vaguely plausible excuse. Not like he'll miss the FaceTime with Abierte, he will not. But Manfred wants to be sure the comedy is not concealing a ruse. He shares the unlikely news with Ruth Ann over some goodies she's retrieved from Croissants and Company. Forgive me, Ted, and God help me, but the pastries have made me weak. The girl's going to flip out. The girl? Our fearless director? Ah, yes. She's pretty keen on the Edge angle, so to speak. Mixed martial assholery, the movie. I can see it now. You know, you can watch UFC tournaments in Europe, and I've done a fair bit of just that. Call it a prurient interest, but it reminded me of home. MMA, UFC, acronyms of the asinine. How about capoeira? The rare occurrence of Manfred's drawing a blank emboldens her, and Ruth Ann ventures further. Brazilian, combat dance thing? See it down on the beach here sometimes, I'd imagine. Our friend Michaela has a regular mestre for an admirer. Mestre. Portuguese variant of master. I am not altogether in the dark, you know, but I thought capoeira was non-contact, ritualized of the martial aspect, so to speak. Half true. The tourist's version is pure acrobatics and trickery, but centuries ago, African slaves in Brazil developed capoeira surreptitiously. It had to appear as entertainment and not combat. The tradition of evading persecution is handed down with that same discipline. And our ex-champ is some kind of dancing Wu-Lai master? I'm sorry, not meaning to be flippant, but if you watch these MMA brawls carefully, you can identify the fighters' backgrounds and specialties. I think the Edge was a rare import to the sport. Most come from boxing, kickboxing, judo, or other wrestling backgrounds. Not our friend, I think. Like most of the others, He probably incorporated aspects of many disciplines. His movement, though, was unlike any other. I've seen it. Rapid, fluid, constant flow. Wait a minute. You mean to say you have prior knowledge of our MIA, Master of MMA? What can I say? He had the best moves. Weaving and sweeping motion on the way in. Fantastically deceptive footwork. An unconventional arsenal of counterattacks. All hallmarks of the master capoeirista. Meekness is shaking his head, bemused. And we care about all this exactly? Why? No obvious reason. Just thought I'd give you my take on our collaborator. One of those blind alleys you always insisted have to be taken, just because they occur to you. Writerly inquiry, right? Listen, capoeiristas were survivalist street fighters with countless enemies, state police, and thugs alike. They were rebels, wielding blades as well as their wheeling limbs. The rituals of capoeira are nonviolent, yes, but traditional applications include repelling multiple, often armed assailants. Also in the tradition, capoeiristas choose aliases to elude enemies and authorities. So we're to indulge our child director's penchant for the improbable? The edge may have come by his handle graduating into the tradition. I'd almost bet on it. It probably references their weapons of choice. Don't forget the first time he went to ground either. He foiled worldwide recognition and an entire industry's notice. Goodness, you are a bloodhound. Okay, listen to this. Luta libre. Roughly, free fighting. Darling, I am an Angelino. Spanish is my second language, and Portuguese is not a big ask from there. Well, it's a major adaptation of judo and no-holds-barred wrestling. It got big promotion through the Vale Tudo competitions. Vale Tudo, anything goes. Yes, those competitions in Brazil, jiu-jitsu innovators, the Gracie family of champion fighters, they brought it all to the States, and the UFC was born. You seem to have acquired a very gory taste for Mortal Kombat. From England, catch wrestling, developed from the Greco-Roman style, no-holds-barred challenge matches. They became popular here in the States as carnival sideshows. From Brazil, luta livre and vale tudo. From Japan, shuto, an outgrowth of their professional wrestling game. The three streams all collected local traditions all along the way, eventually converging to create today's modern MMA. During this extended data dump, Meekness has slumped in defeat on the kitchen/living room daybed. He can barely recall what tickled him about the Edge's disappearance in the first place. Can I detect some erotic underpinning to this elaborate explanation of our friend's colorful background? Just trying to be helpful. Grist for the miller. Mill me something tasty.